Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan. We've got Peter Roth on today from SolarWise, and we had a fantastic conversation diving into all things how you can add solar into your business in a seamless way, which is going to add more revenue to your business. And Peter's an expert at this because he did this in his own HVAC company, which he has now exited from, that he built up to $10 million. Thaddeus, what was your favorite nugget from this episode?
I think part of it was just the whole nothing glamorous about business and looking at some of the obstacles that the limiting beliefs and smashing some of those down. And Peter's story about, coming from, an immigrant father and running his business and what he had to do in order to be able to flip the switch to grow his business to that $10 million, I think was a fascinating conversation. Peter, how about yourself?
I think to me, like the thing that people should take, like the people that what I would want people to take away is like, whether it's this or something else, like you need an irresistible offer. Right? Like I think that's like the thing that will help your business find its footing better than anything else, is if you just have an irresistible offer, because then you don't have to be the best at anything because you've got something that no one else does. Right. And so that's why I constantly am saying the words decommoditize. Like, how do I decommoditize myself? Because when I'm commoditized, I'm constantly the victim of the next guy selling the same crap for $1 less.
Right. And that was a great part of the conversation. And I absolutely love that. So Evan, what about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, and at the end of the day, look, perfection is the killer of progress. We talked about that heavily on the episode. I love that part of the conversation. But Peter added $2 million in revenue to his business because of adding solar to it. And
in a system that wasn't as good as it is now.
Absolutely.
Caveat that, right?
And on average, $32,000 per comfort advisor per month could be added to your business. Phenomenal conversation today. We definitely want to hear from you what your favorite nugget was, so leave it down below and enjoy the show.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan, where we have good conversations with good people, and any conversation worth having, it's worth having drunk. So cheers, my friend.
Cheers, bud.
Fancy new background you got there.
Always moving around, always adjusting.
The joys of a different life, but hey, you got a professional mic, so you're good to go. So today we have on Peter Roth to the show of Get SolarWise. Fascinating story, actually. When I had a conversation with him earlier, and people think, oh, great, another vendor, another solar person coming on the show. No, he actually had an HVAC business, had it up until about 2 to 3 years ago, exited out of his HVAC business and realized, hey, you know what? There's a greater opportunity to spread the knowledge of adding in solar into what it is that you do. You're already in the home. They're already doing those sorts of things. You might as well have an easy layup. But the thing that I liked about what he was doing with his previous business, so we can get into some of those things. I mean, I remember on the conversation I had with him, he was like, yeah, it was small shop. We're doing about $10 million a year before he exited out of it. So obviously knows a thing or two about the HVAC side of things too. So excited to see and get into some of those conversations themselves.
Well, and also funny how he got into HVAC, but we'll save that story for him. Yeah, no, and I mean, it's very often that guys talk about, we want to add in electrical at some point. We want to add in plumbing at some point. Some guys talk about adding in solar at some point. The ability to add it in without the extra legwork, I think, is fascinating behind Peter's model here. So I'm excited to get into all the kinds of conversations around that, because at the end of the day, how can we add more revenue without adding more overhead?
Right. And that's an easy way. I mean, and here's a little hint. 8K is the average commission from what they do. So excited to really dive into that part of things. So this show would not be possible, of course, without our sponsors, Chirp, Profit Rocket, and On Purpose Media, and in no particular order, Profit Rocket.
I love how we always just throw each other under the bus with that. It's great. Look, with callprofit.rocket.com, you got to go check them out. Profit Rocket. If you want to learn what Victor has done to grow his business from 0 to 40 million, by the way, just announced the sale of his business and the partnership with a new business partner. I can't remember the name of the group that he partnered with, but congratulations to you, Victor, and the Absolute Airflow team. But if you want to learn what he did to get to that point, he's got it all laid out for you in the business blueprint. So go check it out at callprofitrocket.com, because he has everything from SOPs to call scripts to what you need to be running in your business, the numbers you need to looking at from finance, what you need to do to prepare to sell. And he's got some great guests that come in and speak in the blueprint as well. It's fantastic. It is loaded with so much content. The value that you get from that alone is worth probably easily about 10x what you pay for it. So it is tremendous. On top of that, you've got the Growth Summit that is coming up this September in Austin, Texas. The speaker lineup is phenomenal. I'm super excited to be there and be podcasting and sneak in and listen to some of the speakers as well, because it's going to be so amazing. And you'll be able to take the knowledge that you gain from this summer, all the lessons you've learned from this summer, go there, learn how you can apply the fixes and adjust to make corrections throughout next year. So I'm excited for that. Next sponsor is Chirp.
Right. And if you're ever wondering, hey, I have all these SOPs and processes in place in my business, but I don't have the lead flow, check out Chirp. Because I tell you what, Dave, he signed up, and in his first month, he added 42,000 in revenue to his business just with Chirp. Cassie signed up and added over 80,000 in revenue in just 14 days with Chirp. They are an CRM automation platform. They have ringless voicemails, direct mail integrations, automated text messages, rehash program, Google reviews, goes on and on and on. Of course, using our link right here, chirp.com/HSSR, get you 25% off your first 3 months. And I even believe it gives you 25% off your onboarding too. So there you go. Hit them up and get some revenue added into your business. And of course, last but certainly not least is On Purpose Media. But we'll talk a little bit about them later on because they're a sponsor of our random question generator. So
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
You know, one thing that I forgot to mention was his anything else you care to share. And there's one line hook. How my company helps HVAC businesses easily make an extra $32K per month per comfort advisor without needing to learn a new trade or do any of the heavy lifting. That's a good line right there. Peter?
I'm a marketer too, man. At my core, I'm a marketer, man.
There you go.
Always got to have catchy
business owner.
Don't lie. ChatGPT wrote that for you.
Actually did not. You know, that's so my wife, I don't think my wife knows how to write anymore because like she uses it literally to like write a thank you card for the neighbor she doesn't even like. She uses it for everything now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I mean, I've used it. I've played around with it a little bit, but call me old fashioned. I still like writing a few things. I like being a marketer, you know?
Right. I like using it for inputs to be able to help out, right? Like if you need to write something long, you use it for the idea generation if you're stuck, where that's where you can use it. But I mean, I also got lazy. We had a buddy's 40th birthday, and we bought him 40 individual tall boys, craft beer, and we wanted to write these things about turning 40 on there. And so my wife had written a few, and so then I went to ChatGPT and I typed in a whole bunch of different prompts and copied and pasted a whole bunch over to her. She's like, why didn't you do this like a week ago? I'm like, well, it wasn't the last minute hour. So
Love it.
We got a few things on the go. Well, Peter, welcome to the show, my friend.
You.
Smoking a stogie with us as well. So that's great. Instead of partaking in the liquor that we are, but why don't you tell us your journey into HVAC? Because I think this is fascinating.
It all started actually with cigars. I mean, oddly enough, it was like my very first, you know, when I graduated college, I was lost and confused. I think like most kids, right? Who graduated college, I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. And this was back, I'm 47. I mean, how old are you guys?
38.
36.
36. All right. So you guys probably, I mean, like when you went to college, I don't know if you went to college, did you have like Instagram and like Facebook and shit? Was that really that common then or not really?
Facebook was.
Facebook?
Yeah, I think I signed up to Facebook in like 2007.
Yeah, see, that shit didn't exist. I mean, like the internet was just kind of being born, like because I was graduating college in 98. Yeah. Right. So like the internet was like just, you know, kind of like just being born. It was mostly like emails, right? That people were doing. So needless to say, the content, the insane amount of content did not exist. Your podcast, like your show right here did not exist, right? Anyone who wants to learn HVAC nowadays, I mean, Jesus Christ, they've got a wealth of information out there, you know, to soak it all up without ever having to step foot into a trade school. It'd almost be silly to even do that. But anyway, so long story short, I like didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. And, you know, I graduated and I, you know, did one stupid job after another, got fired from all of them because I was the guy, like whenever like reams of office paper would go missing and the pens would go missing, it was always this guy who was like, hoarding him in the back of his car. So I realized like I'm probably not really cut out to work for other people. I should probably start my own thing. If I'm going to steal from someone, I should probably be doing it for myself, you know? So yeah, that's what led me to realize I'm like, I got to start my own business like here quickly. Like this is not going to work. My dad was, we're Russian Jewish immigrants, so like, owning a business was just like always, in the culture, and it was never any glamorous. It was nothing. It was like the opposite of glamorous. It was like, I have my own toilet cleaning business, like it was the opposite of glamorous. So it didn't say, I don't want to, dress it up to make it sound like something fancy. But nonetheless, I used to watch my dad, like, negotiate with everyone and literally everything. I used to joke that my dad would walk up to like a Coke machine and be like, I'll give you 25 cents. I swear to, like, he was such old school, like with his negotiation tactics. Like, it was entertaining as hell to listen to, but really embarrassing when you're a little kid following your dad around.
Yep.
It's like, Dad, just give him the $2. Like, you don't need to negotiate the last 10 cents. It's a little, you're living the stereotype, Dad. Come on, like, give it a break. It's hard enough for me to go to middle school. Like, give it a break, Dad. So anyway, I came back from college, had a couple stupid jobs that I hated, got fired, I think, from all of them, realized I needed to start my own thing. No idea what I wanted to do. Knew I loved cigars. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll start a cigar kiosk at a mall. So I did that. Started a little kiosk in a mall, and it was great. Like, it went awesome. I'm shocked to this day that it went so well. Most people's first businesses, go for it.
No. You keep going.
Okay.
I was asking Thad that.
Okay. I got plenty of Jewish jokes. Don't worry.
I had a couple.
We can get into a nice little arm wrestling match in just a little. So I started the cigar kiosk, and it did like shockingly well. Like, I was actually blown away because here I am, 24 years old, very first real business, and it just works. When the hell does that ever happen? So right. Luck exists. Let's put it that way, right? Luck does exist. So that then grew up. I ended up building 3 more retail stores after that, which then ended up turning into this really kick-ass, really high-end, nice cigar bar, and did that for 15 years. And I opened this place up, and obviously I had permission to smoke, right? Like, clearly, but it was in like a glorified strip mall, I guess, for lack of better terms. Right. And the smoke would like penetrate into some of the neighboring spaces. And they would, of course, complain about it, as they should, right? Like, I wasn't trying to ruin their day. And, but like some of the cracks that were going into their space, like, I couldn't reach those cracks. They were just impossible to get to. They're like in between the joists and stuff, and I just couldn't get to them. Right. So I was trying to let the landlord know, I'm like, hey, these guys have to, either you need to give me access to their space, or you, Mr. Landlord, need to go in there and get this fixed yourself, because otherwise it's just going to keep leaking. No one ever did anything about it. So they took me to court twice for eviction. They tried evicting me twice. I won both times, won attorney's fees back both times, which sounds really awesome now, but it pissed the landlord the fuck off.
Absolutely.
Landlords don't like that when you one up them like that, right? Yeah. It does not sit well with them. So lo and behold, it comes back full story. But so won both of those eviction lawsuits, but in the process, even the judge was like, yeah, I mean, you win, but you still need to go fix your shit. Like, you still need to go mitigate all this smoke. So go do X, Y, and Z and report back to me in like 3 months or whatever, and show me like what you've done. Right. So I had to go, like, and I'm scrambling. I know nothing about HVAC, none about any of this stuff. I barely know how to set my own thermostat at this time. Let's be honest, I still barely know how to set my own thermostat.
I was about to say, like most techs.
Yeah. Not a tech, let's put it that way. Sales guy.
Yeah,
so
tech side, sorry. Yeah, and like most people in the HVAC, their filters are probably some of the worst in the business.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I became an accidental like HVAC pro. Loosely putting the word pro, okay, please. But I became this like accidental HVAC pro because I was basically had a judge breathing down my neck going, go fix your shit or you're out. Right. So I had to go call. Can you hear the plane? Is this annoying?
You're good.
Okay. So I had to go and like hire like a whole bunch of random, commercial HVAC companies. They wouldn't even accept residential, and most residential guys don't know what the hell they're doing anyway when it comes to even light commercial work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is, you probably noticed. So I ended up calling these commercial guys, and these commercial guys took one look at my story, and they were just like, just chomping at the bit and just drooling, going, oh, we're going to take the fuck advantage of this guy, They just, because they could see it, like they saw exactly what was going on, and sure enough, they gouged the crap out of me the first couple times. I ended up spending probably, I don't know, $125,000 over the course of 2-3 years in a bunch of failed solutions which did pretty much nothing. And I didn't know any better. So I was just like, well, I guess I'm just going to keep writing checks,
Right.
So one of the guys who I ended up finding a guy who like worked for one of these companies, and he was kind of like an independent contract for them. He and I became really good friends, like excellent friends, like best friends pretty much. And so he ended up just like hanging out at my bar all the time and just basically saying, hey, Peter, I'll just do all the work you need done in exchange for Bud Light. I'm just like, how the fuck do you say no to that?
Right.
Okay. All right, cool. Done. And I swear to fucking God, that's pretty much how I paid this guy for the next like 5+ years was with Bud Light. No joke. I don't think I wrote this guy a check maybe 2 or 3 times for like small
Not
amounts.
even good beer.
That's all he wanted. I swear to God,
To each their own.
yeah, that wasn't even me. That's all he wanted. So we became really good friends during this process. And fast forward a few years, the place was running itself. I didn't really have to pay too much attention to it. He pulls me aside and he's like, hey, you're bored. I'm bored. Do you want to start an HVAC company? I'll turn all the wrenches and you start the sales and marketing side. I was like, I said no a couple times because I just didn't know if that's really what I wanted to do. And then finally ended up agreeing to kind of do it. So that's how we got into HVAC.
And
so how long
did
did you
anybody
run-
pay you? Did anybody pay you in Bud Light when you started your business?
Cigars. Yeah. So that's it. That's my story of how I got started in HVAC.
That's unreal.
Mhm.
I love the Russian Jewish immigrant aspect of it because, I mean, I've heard many success stories that have come from immigrant families and especially kids of immigrants, right? Once you get into that second generation, that third generation, you start to get that spoiled mentality that came along with it. But the hustle that came out of those immigrant families is almost second to none because of what they had to go through just to exit Russia at that point, right? And then come over and then be able to grind and make their way and provide a living for their family. And yeah, it was not glamorous. You hear Gary Vee's dad talk about, running the liquor store and how Gary Vee had to run in the liquor store and he didn't own anything until he was 32 years old.
I was watching that story yesterday. That's funny that you mentioned that. I was literally watching that story yesterday. Yeah. I'm sure there's a bit of him on the internet, but yeah, I was listening to that yesterday about him. We have such a similar background, such a similar story, because like I said, I mean, that's why I put emphasis on it. There was nothing glamorous about it.
No.
When you say business owner, it was not like what you think, it was.
Well, it's equivalent to the chuck in a truck in an aspect, right? In a sense, and relating that to the HVAC, they've essentially bought themselves a job, right? They haven't ran a business. They're doing a job. And look, there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, either. If this is you, and I say this all the time, if you're happy being that type of a business owner, then great, keep doing what makes you happy.
Yeah, man.
There's ways to do it and be profitable and have a good time and have a good life with it, right?
Yep.
When you start a business out of necessity, like most immigrants do, that's exactly what it is. It's out of necessity. It's not for glamour. It's not because they don't know the word scalability. Like, what is that? That's not even in their vocabulary. It's just I did it because I have to put food on the fucking table.
Right. Scalability to them was have more kids.
Yeah. They didn't start a business because they were starting a business. They're starting a business because they can't get a job.
Correct.
Yep.
No one will hire them because of their language barrier. Half of these guys, my dad had a master's degree in chemical engineering. You want to know how far that got him here in the U.S.? You can imagine.
Got him owning a
There's
janitorial.
a million stories like that of immigrants, who come here with doctorate degrees and they're like, spit on it, like it means nothing.
Right.
So it's out of necessity,
I mean, that opens up a whole nother conversation about that. Like that we don't necessarily need to go down that rabbit hole, but knowledge is knowledge, right? Should transcend.
It's interesting because I almost can kind of see that in my mind. It was almost like a handicap for me because I was also of that mentality that like a business is just a necessity. It's nothing glamorous. There's no horizon. There's no exit strategy. It's none of those things. It was just a necessity to put food on the table. So like, not because it was for me, but because I was just that was bred into me through my culture, So I never thought about business in terms of scaling, in terms of growth potential, in terms of partnerships, right? And all these grand terms that you and I throw around all the time. Those thoughts never entered my mind. It was just, what do I got to do to not work for someone else? That was actually my only motivation, was just, what do I have to do to not work for somebody else?
Right. And so looking at that and taking, the non-glamorous, the not sexy part of that business of what your dad did, obviously building the cigar shop up, in one way, so just running itself. When you turned and you started the HVAC business with your business partner, how did that experience allow you to bring more glamour into it, right? Obviously, running a $10 million per year business is a lot more than just the one person out of necessity. So what are some things that you did along the way in building that business to make it more glamorous to get it to that point?
Well, you mentioned some of these names already. Like, you mentioned some of these rock stars in this industry, like Joe Crisera and Victor Rancourt. Like, these guys were absolutely like beyond invaluable in my growth. I met Victor when Victor was just kind of giving birth to his career, which fucking exploded overnight. I mean, he's got to win the award for fastest exploding business ever. I mean, that guy's an absolute powerhouse. I mean, I'm in awe. Even in the multiple industries that I'm in right now, I'm still very much in awe of his accomplishments. I think he's one of the most impressive innovators and just business guys out there, period. And then Joe, with just, Joe made me wrap my mind around the notion that sales is so much more than just a pitch. There's so much more to it. It's such a more multifaceted thing, which bleeds into every single aspect of your business. Like, it never even occurred to me that like CSRs need their own training from Joe, right? And I was like, and when I saw that, I was like, holy shit, they do. And my God, like it's these types of like outside the box, larger than life, large orders of magnitude thinking that really got me to like expand my thinking too. Which, like I said, well, I was inherently sort of limited because of my thinking when I was a kid, that like we just start businesses to just put food on the table.
Right. So other than that, starting businesses for putting food on the table, what were some of those limiting beliefs that you had to break down?
That was a big one. Oh, here's a big one. I grew up with this notion. I grew up listening to my dad get yelled at by everyone in the family anytime we would go on a family vacation. My dad's side of the family all lives in Israel. And I remember we all decided to I was really young. We all decided to take a trip to go visit the family in Israel. And it was going to be a 2-week trip, because if you're going to take your family to Israel, like, you're going to go for, more than a week. And I just remember, like, I was a kid, I was really young, but I to this day, I remember my mom and his mom and everyone, and my grandma, I remember everyone like yelling at him going, if you leave the business, like literally with the Jewish grandmother shaking finger like this, and if you leave the business for even 5 minutes, everyone's going to rob you blind. Right. And that was the mentality. It's like, you are married to your fucking business. You can't leave the driver's seat for even a second, or everyone will rob you blind and the whole thing will blow up in your face. And my dad was like that too. Like, he didn't understand the notion of like, the owner has got to actually step away from his business if it's ever going to be successful. That concept was so foreign to them. And I remember when I first started my business and I started, getting really into reading a lot of business books. What's the E-Myth? Who hasn't read the E-Myth, right?
Great book.
The E-Myth, right? That's like the OG of business books, right? Like, it's like all modern day good quality business books came from the E-Myth, because that's really where the notion of scaling and stepping back and handing over control and delegating, it all came from the E-Myth. I'm sure there's other books that came before E-Myth, but that's really in my mind where it was really kind of solidified. And God, I got yelled at too. Like, anytime like we would take a little vacation, I'm like, Mom, my employees, they got it. Like, and I have systems in place, and there's things called security cameras and software. And she's, the waving of the finger still never stopped. So like, getting them outside of that mindset was almost impossible for the older generation. That's why you go into like Korean run liquor stores and Jewish dry cleaners, and the owner is still there at 90 years old, slaving away every day, and he'll die there. Mm-hmm. It's the way he's been bred.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a good thing to, like, it's a good recognition. And I think that's probably one of the most difficult things for a lot of people running a business is that whole stepping back, relinquishing control and delegating tasks out, because it's the notion of, well, I can do it better than somebody else. Why would I let somebody else do it? Right. But if you switch your mind to that, say, okay, can you train somebody, or can you allow somebody by way of fumbling through to get to 80% of your level? That's it. 80% of your level. If they can get to 80% of how you do it, guess what? You've bought back a lot of your time, because now you can move on to your key focus areas within your business that are going to generate the most revenue. Good exercise too for anybody that's wondering or stuck at this level. And this actually came, the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. I'm on a big kick on it. Phenomenal book. But one of the exercises that you do with inside of that, and this applies to really anybody, anywhere, at any point in their business, is saying, okay, write down every single task that you do on a day-by-day basis, no matter how big, no matter how small, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour. Write it down, and then you categorize it with a dollar sign, $1 being the lowest value, $4 being the highest value that adds revenue to your business. And then after you've done that for an entire week, go back and look at those things and highlight the ones in green that light you up, that give you the most fulfillment, that fill your cup. Highlight the ones in red that take and suck and drain energy. Guess what you do with the ones that are in red? You delegate them out, and you get somebody to do it to at least 80% of your level. And now you're going to move forward and obviously looking at the revenue coefficient on what's going to actually bring the most revenue into your business. And now you can actually focus on the key things that are going to light you up and bring the most revenue back into your life, into your business.
Love it.
Yep.
When you said that we should be delegating things out and asking our teams to be, we should be happy if they're performing at 80% of our level. Heck, I think we should be performing at 80% of our level. Right? Because perfection is the killer of all progress, right? Like, we sit here and get caught up in our own perfection. Like, I'm not going to release this, update until it's perfect. You're never going to release it, we should be operating at 80%. I think we'd all be happier if we did. We'd be much more sane.
Mm-hmm.
I know this.
Well, something that we said in our business all the time is done is better than perfect. Right. And this is something that is reiterated time and time again with our team.
Oh God, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And hey, look, that's tough for type A's. I'm going to say that right now. That is tough for type A's to get around this done is better than perfect notion. But really, I mean, it's like you can sit there and overanalyze and over edit and over whatever to the nth degree until it's just perfect. But then you spent too much time getting it just perfect, when really those last couple tweaks that you're going to make, not going to do anything. Like, I'll use us as a great example on this in the content that we put out, right? There's stuff that even a month ago I didn't like, but it was done. And I say, great, let's launch it. Next time, let's do this. Right. And then we just get it out there, because honestly, even what was done beforehand could actually have been good and pulled better than what I think is going to work as well. Right. So you never know. Just get it done, get it off your plate, move it out the door, move on to the next. And that's actually something that you look at any of the top businesses that we've had on our podcast, speed.
Well, look at every cell phone that's ever delivered.
Right.
It's never perfect. That's why they do updates.
That's right.
And that's why they keep on coming up with new phones, and Apple's on like Apple 27 now, or whatever number they're on.
So I'll be talking to you guys from my Apple Vision Pro.
Right. No, that's the metaverse. We can go hang out and play Roblox together with headsets strapped onto our faces.
So in your business, and maybe this happened at the cigar shop before it happened at the HVAC business, but at what point did you realize that you were the kryptonite, you were the bottleneck behind the business, and you were holding it back from it growing to where it could be?
Oh God. I mean, on day number one, I think honestly, I was pretty humble to know that like I couldn't make this all happen myself. I had done enough reading at that point and had enough like just insight to be able to understand that like I can't, there's only so much that I can do. I'm way better off just kind of delegating stuff out and making sure that everyone is doing their job than me sitting here trying to do everyone else's job. That's just a recipe for failure.
Love it.
Do you live on a golf course?
I do not. Why?
Oh, I keep seeing people walk behind, and
I,
like it looks like they're pushing a golf cart.
I back into the green belt, and the tennis court is right there, and the pool is right over there. So there's like people.
It's probably people in their tennis clothes. I get it. So that makes sense. So, well, perfect segue actually into the random question generator, Evan, unless you had any other final thoughts.
No,
we get into that. All right, cool. So the random question generator, by the way, is brought to you by onpurposemedia.ca. They are your local marketing experts for the home services and just happen to have a flair for dealing with HVAC companies. But if you're ever wondering, hey, is my marketing actually on par or not, hit us up on purposemedia.ca/marketing-analysis. I said us because guess what? We're the owners behind it. So it is our company. So if you do have any questions, hit us up. We're here to provide value as much as we possibly can. So random question. Peter, part of the show. It's one of my favorite parts. We actually have 4 queued up. I actually haven't even read them, so I don't even know what they are. This is how random they're going to be. You get to choose. Yeah, you get to choose. Do you want question 1, 2, 3, or 4? We don't get to tell you what the question is until you tell us the number.
Let's go 1.
1. What is the most unique or unusual talent you possess that not many people know about?
I'm really good at detecting brands of beef jerky. Like if you give me like 10 brands of beef jerky and little blind samples, I could probably get about 75%.
That is a very.
I'll be signing autographs later. Don't worry.
There's a very unusual and unique talent. I was tempted to mix in my own beef jerky into that equation to see if you could detect if it was homemade or not.
Okay, I bet you I could determine that. The homemade beef jerky is like I think is usually pretty. It sticks out.
Yeah,
commercial beef jerky has that sort of just kind of glossy, sugary, crappy sort of like a texture to it.
Right.
It's always different.
Now, is it just the taste that you go on and texture, or is it the sight of it too? So can you look at it and tell?
Oh yeah, for sure. All 3. Yeah.
Like what if you're blindfolded? Would you still have the same level of accuracy?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, I know what we're doing next time I see you in person. I'm gonna go buy 9 different brands of beef jerky, and I'm gonna put one of my own mixed into it, and I'm gonna let you test it. And then the next question I'm gonna ask is, what type of animal is it? Is it beef, or is it venison, or is it elk?
Oh come on, that's not even a challenge.
Sold. All right, sold. So technically, there will be 7 store-bought and 3 of Thad's, and away we go. So.
I will fly out there for this.
Sold. I'll send you home some too. You can actually take venison back across the border. You can fly with it too. I always love that question. Do you ever bring in any meat? Like, yep. I'm like, what do you got? I'm like, venison. They're like, and they always look at you funny when you tell them that you're actually bringing meat across the border, because it's like, well, and then you can see their wheels turning to see if venison's actually legal or not, and it's completely fine because guess what? Deer don't adhere to the border crossing agents. They just go wherever they want.
That's a good point.
All right, getting back on track. Part of why we have you on is the solar aspect of things. And look, if anybody's lived under a rock the last few years, solar is definitely making a big push in basically any industry, right? There's a lot of people that are making the movements, specifically in places like California and the Sunbelt states. I believe there's also, I don't know if it's US wide, you probably know, but that 30%. I think it's a federal credit that you get when you install solar, combining it with an HVAC. And I know when we were chatting, you had actually mentioned some unique things that in the way that this is, you're not adding in a brand new line into a business, right? There's ways to do it without adding and say, hey, we also do solar, right? Now you're building out a whole nother department, which we've had other people on the show, say just master the one's trade, right? This is just an easy layup by training your sales guys and gals to be able to just add it into the mix, into the equation to be able to do it. And it can almost cost consumers next to nothing. So I thought that was fascinating stuff. So what are you seeing in terms of the solar space and integrating in with the HVAC space?
I'm seeing a lot more of it happening now. Finally, I think solar is such a new industry. It really has only gotten its real legs in the past decade or so. Up until then, it's just been those very few early adopters, that really brought it on. You see them with the old homes with those really washed out, milky looking panels on their rooftops. So it's been, just the early adopters. Now it's finally starting to hit mainstream. And it's really like the wild, wild west because there's like very little to no regulation on it, which isn't going to last long. But right now there's like almost no regulation. Like just everything is unlicensed. Anyone can do anything at it's crazy. Like it's actually a little bit nuts. So, there's 100 million homes in the United States that can go solar, that are fully ready for solar right now. 3% of them have solar already. That's it. 3 million homes in the US have solar. There's 100 million more that can't. And I'm not talking like ones in Alaska and Montana. No, I'm talking ones in solar friendly states that already have laws that favor them, that have rooftops that are ready for them, that are perfectly viable candidate for solar. And there's 97 more million of them to go as of today. And obviously, we know with population exploding and all these new homes popping up all over the place, that number continues to expand every single day. So it's crazy. So we're seeing if there's a bigger, the roofers were like the original home improvement companies that really started getting into solar, because it was just a little bit more of a natural tie-in, and they're already dealing with that kind of stuff anyway. So they've been kind of catching on to this a lot longer than some of the other trades. But HVAC is such a natural pairing because of the natural energy efficiency conversation that comes along with it. So it just makes sense, if that answers your question.
No, it definitely does. I mean, that stat that you dropped, 100 million homes and only 3% market penetration, like, there's a lot of opportunity there, right? And like, even heck, I mean, I'm in Alberta, right? In Calgary specifically, and we get some of the most sunny days, highest average sunny days in all of Canada out of all major cities. Over 300 sunny days, and like in wintertime, in some places, depending on the sun level, is still viable. In even some of the northern states, obviously the southern ones are even better, but because of natural ways, obviously, of how that works. So I guess where does somebody start? I guess let's start there, because you look at how can somebody potentially look at adding this into the mix, or I guess why should somebody even add this into the mix before they look at adding it into the mix?
That's the question. Yeah, the why is the big question. And I'll tell you my story. I think my story will kind of help. Will help other HVAC owners understand why this makes so much sense. Is because we were in HVAC only, right? We didn't do plumbing, we didn't do electrical, none of that stuff. We were HVAC only. And we're in HVAC only because anyone who's in HVAC knows that HVAC's a really fucking good business to be in if you know how to run it, right? There's just so many potential, there's so many other potential avenues for revenue in HVAC that doesn't exist in plumbing and electrical. I mean, electrical, my light switch is broken. Cool. What do you mean? Sell you a monthly membership fee for your light switch? Like, this just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? There's just not a lot of revenue potential in those other trades. Sorry, Sparkies. Sorry.
Sparkies.
I was just thinking, like, could you imagine the sales guy that can sell a membership to someone that walks through the house and just flicks on light switches?
Hey, Alexa, turn on my lights.
Yeah, and I'm sure Joe Crisera's already got a program for that.
Absolutely.
It's been around for 20 years knowing him. So I got into it because, here I was, at the time I was still going not door to door, I was still going in the homes, selling HVAC. And, before I became kind of the sales manager. And, I loved it. I really did enjoy it. I mean, I got burned out eventually, but I really did enjoy doing it because I love sales and I like talking to people. And I just love the challenge of the sale. And, here I was creating these amazing relationships with these homeowners, because that's how, I'm just a relationship-based guy. And people buy from their friends, right? They don't buy from the guy who knows more than the next guy. They buy from the guy they like, right? So I'm like, if I can just be likable, you're probably going to buy something from me, right? And it works, right? So I was going into these homes, creating these great relationships, selling them pretty high-end product packages, IAQ, the whole deal, right? Shout out to Gene Slade, by the way, if anyone needs coaching on IAQ, man. Gene Slade's the guy to go to. But so he taught me a lot of great stuff about, IAQ sales, and we took his stuff and even adapted it to our own kind of methodologies and created some really creative sales approaches to IAQ we were doing remotely. And that's how we ended up adding in remote sales, totally virtual sales into our HVAC, was through Gene's training, which we realized could be done totally offsite. I'll talk about that too if you guys want, because that was a really cool way of adding in a lot of extra revenue for guys who don't want to leave their house, aka me. So, I'm in these homes, I'm selling them all these expensive packages, creating great relationships, but now I'm out of shit to sell them. And they would totally buy more from me if I had something else to sell them, because they love me, they love my product, they love our company and our service, and they're like, what else do you got? We'll buy it, And I here's what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to add in electrical. I didn't want to add in plumbing. Again, sorry, plumbing guys, sorry, HVAC, electrical guys. Didn't want to do it. That was, like you mentioned, it's like I didn't want to have to add in a whole new fleet of guys, to go out there and turn wrenches. I just didn't want to do it. That was always the biggest bottleneck in our business, was the installers. I'm sure I'm not unique in that regard. So I'm like, anything that I can do that doesn't involve me bringing in new labor was definitely key. So I realized I had to find something where I was really kind of a middleman, something I was just pushing papers across the table. And I weighed out a bunch of different options, and solar by far, like by a landslide, was the best thing, because I found ways that I could do it completely hands off, where I was just a sales guy essentially. But like you even mentioned in your intro, the average sales commission on a solar deal is $8,000 average, without even being the installer. So I'm like, I don't want to be the installer. Why would I deal with all the goddamn headaches? I know like all about that. You don't need to tell me about the headaches of being an installer. So I'm like, if I can make $8,000, which is more than we were making on complete system change out sometimes, right? How many guys here are making less than $8,000 on a system change out? If it was a room full of 100 people, I'm sure more than half of them would be raising their hands right now. Mm-hmm. So if I said, hey, if you could do a system change out and you never had to lift a damn finger and just push some paper, to someone else, would you do it? I think every one of them would be like, fuck yes. Right. So
most sales guys like money, and sales gals, sales people. There we go.
Last I heard.
Yeah.
Business owners.
Mm-hmm. I mean, most people like money.
I think so. So that's where the idea was born. And so I developed some relationships, found the way to be able to start, bringing in nationwide installers that I could outsource the projects to. And we were doing a very primitive version of it back then. Now the version we got now is like way the hell cooler. There's really interesting things that we can do now. Back then, I just didn't know how to do it, and I didn't have the licensing or the ability to pull these stunts off, but now I can. So back then we were just straight up selling solar to people. And it was a complex process back then because of all the paperwork and bureaucracy and red tape and the tax credits and stuff like that. So it was a little bit of a challenge. You really had to do a little bit of learning to make it work. So it was great. Like, I loved it because it was a really easy upsell. I already had the great relationships with people. At the time, I decided I want to treat it like a separate transaction. I didn't want it to potentially cannibalize our primary objective, which was selling HVAC. Right? I didn't want it to step on my own toes. So I was like, okay, well, then maybe I'll do it as a separate transaction, right? Like, I'll come back later, or I'll call them up. I'll find an excuse to call them up and figure out a way to do that. And we did, and it worked great. But like I said, then that's when we found a much, much better way to do this, which I'm happy to share with you guys if you'd like.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, one of the things is like the why is done. Obviously, adding it in, to it without building in a team. It's just training your staff to be able to add in that extra layer in terms of the sales process. And so now it's really about the how. It's like, great, you had your sales guys at 8K, and I'm sure that the business owner can obviously make some off of that too, and maybe not spin that off to your sales guys. And there's some structure behind that I'd be curious to get into some of that part later on. But now I have the why. Now let's get into the how.
Sure. So like I said, I was doing a primitive version of this back in the day. And then once I started building up my own company and realized that there was some really cool hidden opportunities here that really paired well together, this really cool symbiotic relationship. It works best for HVAC. It works really well for roofing. It works okay for it works well for window replacement companies too, but it works best for HVAC companies.
Why?
Because of the natural conversation of energy efficiency. Right. So here's I'll give you like a real basic pitch to kind of like whet your appetite a little bit. So the real basic pitch is, you come into the home, right? The customer says, my system's not running, or it's cycling, or it's doing some weird shit, whatever. I don't know how to describe it, right? It's doing some weird stuff. Cool. Let me go take a look at that. Mr. Homeowner, my primary objective here is not just to fix your system and get it back up on some crutch, and moving along there for you. My main objective is to find the problem itself, right? I don't just want to keep throwing Band-Aids on it. If it's up to you, do you want to just fix the problem, or do you want to just keep me throwing Band-Aids on it? Of course, they're going to say they want to fix it. And I'm like, it doesn't even necessarily cost you much more money. It just means I got to do the thing that I'm good at, which is actually do some investigative work. Do you want me to do that for you? They always say yes. Cool. Well, Mr. Homeowner, look, the true health report of any home pretty much is hidden inside of your utility bill. That's like the canary in the coal mine that kind of shows me everything as to what's going on with your home. It's like the lab results of your blood test. Like, kind of, you may look real healthy, but your lab results don't, right? And that's the lab results of your home. So if you've got a utility bill nearby, you want to go grab it, I can go take a look at it for you real fast. Well, of course, they say yes. They go grab it, take a look at it, jaw drop. Oh, shit. I'm seeing some stuff here that's definitely concerning me, right? I shout out to Joe Crisera, man. One of my favorite things that Joe ever did was like always preface by saying, like, if I see anything that's concerning, do you want me to just go ahead and make note of that for myself so that we keep records of that? Or did you want me to bring that to your attention as well? I love that line. I think I said that to my wife now all the time, too. Shut up. I know where that comes from. So stop trying to sell me shit, Peter. So we start with that, of course. Now you have permission to show them the problems. And then that's when we go, and I have a whole pitch for this, by the way, and it's really simple. It is not a complex pitch. It's designed, this is designed for any guy to totally get quickly. It's short. It's like literally half a page long, the whole pitch. So, and I train the guys on how to do this. This is not designed to be this complex all-day training thing. It's not a month-long thing. It's like, we sit down for a couple hours and you're ready to rock. So I show them on how to read a utility bill. I show them how to identify the problems. I show them how to convey those problems in an effective manner to the homeowner. And then I show them how to solve these problems. Here's the thing with utility bills. It's like cancer. It's like the silent killer, which grows inside of you, sight unseen, until it's like taken over half of your body. And then it's already too late. And you didn't even know. You felt fine, right? And then until you felt some lump, right? That's cancer, and it sucks, right? It's a silent killer. You don't even know what's happening. Or like when you go to your doctor, like I said, with the lab results, like, I feel fine. And he's like, yeah, well, this piece of paper strongly disagrees, right? This piece of paper says you got a week left to live, and you're like, shit, I better cut out the bacon. So that's what this piece of paper does. And I show you exactly, I show these guys exactly how to convey that in a super effective way. So now the pitch for this is amazing. It's really, really cool because, and I'm not just saying that because I sell shit. It's really cool because here's the deal. Like with solar, there's this 30% federal tax credit. It only exists for solar. It doesn't exist for any other thing. And it's been protected for the next 10 years. So this pitch is viable for the next 10 years. And if they extend it further, then great. But we got this 30% tax credit, which essentially acts like a 30% discount for all intents and purposes. It's the easiest way to look at it. It's just a straight up 30% discount. So now I'm able to talk to the homeowner and say, hey, look, we're going to take a look at your system, and then I'm going to kind of share with you what I find. So now we go down to the basement, I take a look at the system, write down my list of issues, come back to the kitchen table, come up with my list of issues. And obviously the natural move at this point would be for an HVAC selling tech or a tech or even a comfort advisor, whatever, to, of course, gently pitch a system change out, right? Using whatever techniques that they want to use. And that's cool. And that works a certain percentage of the time for sure. And there's guys who are really great at that. And Vic Rancourt is a master of that. But there's an even better way. And here's the kick-ass way to do it. If I'm able to pull that homeowner down and I sit them down and I go over my list and I go, here's some of the things. I go over my standard list of the problems I found with the system. Nothing unusual there. But now, before I start mentioning, hey, do you want to keep putting money into this thing that's already on its last legs? The usual pitch that everyone does. Now, instead, what I'm able to say is, Mr. Homeowner, the owner of our company, he was recently approved for some federal funding in order to do some really serious energy efficiency upgrades to the homes of his customers. What that means to you is that basically we can now provide really serious energy efficiency upgrades to you with no money out of your pocket whatsoever. Would that be something you'd be interested in maybe hearing about? Sure, Peter, why not? Cool. Well, look, if you guys were interested, I could show you how you could go solar. And here's what that does for you. Very simply put, Mr. Homeowner, solar is just a simple bill swap. That's all it really is, right? We're taking your expensive electric bill, which always keeps going up. It never stops going up. Minimum on the lowest end, 4% a year in some quiet states, upwards of 15 to 20% in places like Texas. It's just always going up. It's the silent kill that I was talking about. Now, all we do is we get rid of that and we replace it with much cheaper solar that never goes up. You're locked in. It's the same price. And what's such a no-brainer about it, Mr. Homer, let me ask you a question. Does your utility company, do they have to call you to get your approval to ask for to increase your prices? Oh, they don't? Are you ever going to stop paying your utility company? No, you're not. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Homer. When you bought your house, is it did you get a regular mortgage or a variable rate? Was it a fixed rate or a variable rate? Oh, it was a fixed rate. Let me ask you a question. Would you ever get a variable rate mortgage that had no end date to it at all? Everyone's like, no, absolutely not. And I'm like, do you realize that's what your utility company is doing to you now? Isn't this pretty much the definition of a predatory loan? Variable rate, no end date to it. That's a predatory loan, right? And do we realize that, like, at least with a predatory loan, when you pay it off, you at least own the underlying asset, right? At least own the house when you're all done, if you ever pay it off. But do you ever get to own the equipment that makes electricity for your home with your utility company? So it's even worse than a predatory loan, right? And they're like, shit, yeah, I never even thought about it that way. And that's when you're like, don't worry, like, neither did I, until I went solar. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. Like, I was just as guilty of this. This is why I'm saying it's like the silent killer, because all this stuff has happened. Because I didn't even look at my utility bill ever. So I had no idea all this evil shit was happening behind closed doors. I had no idea. You didn't know. My mom didn't know. None of these people who now in my family have gone solar, they had no idea. That's okay. That's why I'm here. That's exactly why I'm here. So here's an option for you, Mr. Homeowner. If you'd like, what I can do is I can put together an option for you where we get rid of this expensive increasing electricity bill. Like I said, that goes away. We replace it with much cheaper solar that never goes up. Eventually you pay it off and now it goes down to zero. On top of that, what I could do at the exact same time for you, because of your really lucky timing today, is that if it made sense to you to replace your HVAC system now, we could lump these two together in the same finance product. And the cool thing is there's this 30% tax credit right now for solar. If we put it together in the same finance product, well, now it's like you're getting an automatic 30% discount on your entire HVAC replacement system. I can't even get 30% discount from my friends and family. So if you'd like, I can show you what this comes to. It'll probably be about the same price as what you were paying on your electric bill before. Now you got a whole brand new HVAC system on top of that too. We're going to warranty it for the next number of years. You don't have anything left to worry about. What do you think? Joker Sarah, what should we do? Right?
That's a good. What should we do? Puts the ball into their court. So, and look, like it's an easy conversation, especially when you have the training involved into it to just be able to add that in. So great. Now somebody's like, okay, well, thanks for that, Peter. We have now the structure in place. We can add this in. What happens next? I'm a business owner. What makes the most sense for me? How am I going to capitalize on this? If I got to pay my sales guys, gals, this, how can I make some profit, et cetera, et cetera. What's that part look like?
Logistics. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll talk about logistics before.
Just super like high level.
Yeah, simple 30,000 foot view. Before I do that, can I bring up why this is such a good idea other than the obviously really cool pitch that comes along with it, which is super hard to say no to. Think about it this way, guys. If anyone is watching this right now, pay attention. This is super important. When you're pitching this, do you realize that now you've just decommoditized yourself? Right? Because the reality of it is, it's like everyone in this industry always talks about, how do I make my company stand apart from the rest? How do I become the premium dealer? How do I charge more than the next guy and validate that, right? How do I raise my value so that it exceeds my price, right? This is sales and business building 101. But the fact of the matter is, I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubble, but the fact of the matter is that any other HVAC company has also been trained on probably the exact same thing, right? So anyone who's worth a damn and has done Joe's training or Vic's training or anyone's training is already doing that. right? So this is becoming a pretty competitive market these days. These guys who have 20, 30, vans on the road, you don't think they've gone through that same training too? You don't think that they have a good value proposition pitch as well? Do you think anyone goes into the person's home and says, we have a mediocre warranty, we have the second best systems in the planet? No, I got the best this and the best that, and right? Everyone's got the best everything. So just because you think that you have the crispest white shirt, yeah, well, the next guy's got one that's crisper. Yeah, well, I took my shoes off at the door. Yeah, well, he did too, and he had a really custom logoed mat, and he left it with your neighbor. Yeah, but I gave them a mug. Yeah, well, he gave them 2 mugs. Right? So it's like, for us to think that we're so special, it's like, dude, come on, guys. This is the internet era. Everyone has access to all this information, like I was talking about earlier. Anyone, if you're up against, high sophisticated companies anymore these days, they're doing the same thing that you are. So you're really not standing out. But now you can, right? Because now you're able to really get rid of your competition, because now you're able to show them, even without the solar part. Forget the solar, right? Forget the fact that I just saved you this money. Let's just shelf that for a second. Now I'm able to sell you the HVAC system for 30% off. No one can do that. So now I can get you into the most high efficiency system there is out there at a cheaper price than the next guy who's pushing single stage garbage. And on top of that, I'm able to get it to you for pennies on the dollar, because the payment's been spread out onto a 25-year loan product, as opposed to everyone else who's pushing a 10-year home improvement loan. And on top of that, how much do home improvement loans run for these days? I don't even know, because I don't use them anymore. 9.9, 10.9, something like that. Pretty standard, right? Close, right?
Like
but
that, yeah.
with solar, I can get you down to 3.99%.
And you can lump that all into one payment.
Bingo.
Yep.
It's a fucking no-brainer. That's what I'm saying. And now you've just weeded out your competition, because they can't touch this anymore. I don't care if they have a better system. I don't care if they have better retail pricing on the package itself. It means nothing, because the monthly payment's going to be way the hell higher, and they can't get you a 30% discount. But I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just decommoditized you. You now don't have to worry about your competition. Now when we need to get multiple quotes. Really? What is that going to do for you? Are you going to be able to get 30% lower than my price? No, you can't, right?
Well, and if they do just the HVAC unit, it's probably going to come in close to like what you're doing for both, right? And that's where it becomes a no-brainer. So cool. So back onto that, that 35,000 foot view on kind of the economics of things. I'm a business owner. How do I make money off of it, right? What's the general aspect of how that looks?
Yep. Okay. Logistics. And this is the easy part, actually. So logistics is, you find a company that can help you put this together for you, whether it's my company or there's a couple others in the country that do something somewhat similar. I haven't sat down with them to hear their pitch, and I don't know their exact layout, so I don't know for sure how good it is. All I know is that this is all we focus on. This is all we specialize on, because of the fact that I came from the HVAC industry, right? Anyone else who does this was not from the HVAC. I mean, how many guys do you know that are specialists in both of these industries in tandem, right? Like almost no one. So I bring this very unique skill set to the industry, which is awesome, because now I can create these very unique custom programs, because I know your business. I know exactly how you guys run things. I know what your guys are like. I know what your comfort advisors don't want to do and what they don't want to learn. I know those pains. I've been through them myself a million times. So to answer your question very simply, I created a program basically, which is a really simple, short thing. It's very simple. I don't even come in. I do the whole thing on Zoom. I train your guys over the course of a couple hours. I train them on how to pitch this. I provide them with the whole thing fully scripted out. Very, very simple to follow. I created the infrastructure for all of this to even happen in the first place. And by the way, we can take this even one step further, because this infrastructure is already in place to be able to provide the funding for HVAC. Well, I don't have to stop there. I can provide funding for just about any other home improvement project they want as well. This is where the pitch gets really interesting, because once you get their buy-in on the HVAC, if they go, yeah, this is a no-brainer, why the hell wouldn't we do this? And you're like, yeah, no shit, obviously, right? Now you got their buy-in on this, and you're like, well, you guys, I want to throw this out there. Were there any other dream projects that you guys wanted to get done around your house? maybe a dream pool that you've always wanted to install, maybe the basement that you've always wanted to refinish with that cool man cave and the cigar bar down there, or just a kitchen remodel, anything like that you guys have wanted to do. Yeah, Peter, we've always wanted to remodel our kitchen. That thing sucks. Oh, cool. So now I talk to them. I living the dream. I have them really put themselves inside of this new kitchen. Oh, tell me about this new kitchen. What kind of flooring? What kind of countertop? Is it going to be modern? Is it going to be traditional? Tell me all about it. Right? And I really, you see you and your wife kind of hanging out in there, making dinners together and sipping wine. What kind of food do you like to make? Who's the big chef in the family? Come on, don't lie. Right? So really sell them on the dream, get them emotionally tied in on this new renovation project now. And you're like, now once that conversation is done, you're like, well, hey, Mr. Homeowner, if you'd like, what I can do when we go to check the finances, what I can do, if you'd like, I can check to see what you guys might qualify for. And maybe there's enough funding there to get some funding for that kitchen as well. Of course, at the same 30% discount and with the same really low payments. Would you like me to check to see if you guys qualify for that additional funding? Now you tell me that another HVAC company can come in and steal your business from you. Can't be done.
No, and it's fascinating because it's something that, so Thad and I both sold Cutco knives. We talked about it numerous times on the podcast, but that was something that I always did with customers on that appointment, was building a wish list.
Yeah.
Right. And then connecting them to that through some type of emotional capacity. Like we talked about buying gifts for their kids as like a chest item, right? Like, the old families that used to have the chest that they would give their kids, and it was full of antique items and things like that. We talked about putting Cutco knives in that, and I would sell 4 sets to a family where they had kids that were under 10 years old, and they would keep them for 10 years before they even gave them to their kids. So being able to connect and sell off of emotion is incredibly powerful, because people buy off of emotion, they justify with logic. So I think you've really you've hit the nail on the head here in terms of emotion, and in terms of being able to really make this make sense in terms of owning the market share, in terms of owning customers and being able to keep them on long term. Help it make sense from a logistical standpoint now to the business owner. How do we implement this? How do we get, what do the economics look like for me as a business owner?
Cool. Super simple. So this is actually the shortest part of the conversation. So I'm going to go in reverse order. So the funding for we'll call it a kitchen remodel. We'll call that. Okay. So this gets all wrapped up into the solar loan. The solar loan, we're going to check their credit first. We'll do a soft check, by the way, no hard pull whatsoever. They don't even do a hard pull until 60 days after your solar system has already been installed. Get that. Isn't that crazy? So no hard pull. So this whole thing is just on the soft pull. It doesn't even affect your credit. We only take the last 4 of your social. So now, like, I don't even have to do a hard pull. There's cool benefit number 1. Number 2, the funding for the dream project, we'll call it in this case the kitchen, that is just simply a check that gets written right back to the homeowner. I'm gonna ask them, how much do you think this dream kitchen remodel is going to cost? And they're going to say, probably $25,000. Cool. We write them the check because we're going to fill up that solar loan with this additional funding for that. So now they get a check back for $25,000. And the same exact thing happens for the HVAC. We just add that in onto the solar loan, just a simple line item, not even fancy, one item, HVAC, $15,000, done, boom.
And then that check gets handed back to the HVAC business. Got
it. Yep. Super simple. And then the solar, that solar always takes a couple months, generally speaking, to get installed. Depending on what part of the country you're in, we can get that done in 30 to 60 days, usually speaking.
So out of curiosity then, if I'm paying for this HVAC system for the next 25 years, in theory, if I'm planning to even stay in this house for 25 years, do you not see an issue with that when the average system is only lasting 8 to 12?
No, it's not a problem at all. So first of all, why would that matter? Right? People finance things all the time where the finance lasts longer than the equipment itself. That's not unusual, right? That doesn't stop people from doing things like that. When you go to sell the home is a very common question. What do I do when I sell the home? When we go to sell the home, that's a simple thing, right? We can just a simple transfer. It doesn't cost anybody a single penny. We transfer this over to the new owner, or you can choose to just pay off the whole thing you want with the extra proceeds from the sale of the home. You can do it either way. So simple. Not hard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now let me answer your question about what's in it for me, the HVAC owner, right? How much do I make, right? Let's talk about that, right? That's what everyone really wants to know. So let me throw out some metrics, simple ones, really simple metrics. So the average home in the U.S. requires an 8 kilowatt solar system. That doesn't mean anything. Forget that. All that matters there is that the average commission per kilowatt is $1,000. Hence, $8,000 commission on the average home in the United States. In Texas, I've sold 25 kilowatt systems. So we're talking $25,000 commission. So Texas companies should be paying attention for sure. Solar in Texas is just booming. It's the biggest state by far for solar right now. So there's your average, KPI to kind of keep track of, which is the $8,000 per home, right? Just using the average home in the United States. Now, as far as splitting that, you can do that however you want. I've had conversations with business owners, and we spend a pretty good amount of time really kind of philosophizing over how to do this. What I have learned is that you don't want to overdo it with your reps, like with your comfort advisors, because then they'll just leave and go sell solar. Right? Seriously, it's like when they see like $8,000 on a solar sale, like, why am I peddling, why am I peddling this HVAC crap to make $400 I see guys who are making $400 on a system change out. Yikes, So I always tell them, like, you guys, you want to keep it in line with whatever your like high end commission is. And, if it's a full, high efficiency system change out. And if your guys are making, $1,500 on a system like that, then I would keep it somewhere in that ballpark. You don't want to totally eclipse that, because like I said, then they'll just jump ship and go sell solar instead. So keep it somewhat similar, but that's great, because look, now your guys is this easy money, right? Because such an easy pitch. So now he's able to triple his income. Could you imagine if a comfort advisor who's used to, by the way, pulling teeth in order to sell a full system change out, right? Which is not an easy thing. Like, no matter how good unless you're Victor Rancor, I get it, but like for the average person, this is not an easy thing, right? It's still hard work. But could you imagine now if they could sell 3 times the equivalent of that in every sale, a system change out and solar and a kitchen remodel? Each of which packs the same commission. Now they're going from $1,500 to $4,500. Now they're a millionaire, right? This is bananas. This is a crazy conversation. Like, there's an actual path to set real 7 figures for a guy who graduated high school. Like, good. I'm glad this exists in this world.
Right. So looking at this model and knowing that you had your business up until a couple of years ago, did you have this built into your HVAC business, or is this something you bolted on after the fact?
Yes. So that's what I was trying to answer was I came up with a primitive version of this, right? It was kind of like that. It was a very primitive version of this. So,
hi, Peter's wife.
Hi, wife. So, it was a very primitive version of this. So, hi, sweetie. So, a super primitive version of this, and it worked, but this is so much better now. Yeah, this is like definitely the better way to go, because now, I can provide this very clear and concise training on how to get guys to literally selling 3 times what they were normally doing, and using a methodology that's easier than what they were doing to just sell HVAC.
Right. Curious, because I know you had the primitive version of it in your business. How much did it contribute to your multiple when you sold?
I don't know. I'd have to go back to look. I don't know. But I would say on average, we were probably, because it was a primitive version and I didn't have I had to do it as a second transaction. Keep that in mind. Remember I told you that? I was coming back to do it as a second transaction. That wasn't as exciting. It's very hard, because now we had to do 2 credit checks, and that's tough. A lot of people were failing the second time around because they got maxed out on the first one. So we were running all kinds. So that's what I'm saying. It was unfair. Like, if I had this sort of, methodology then, yeah, we would have been probably sold for twice as much.
All right. Do you know how much revenue it added to your business?
What's that?
Do you know how much revenue it added to your business that last year? Rough ballpark.
I don't even remember. God, I think we were probably selling 1 system a week. I would say we were selling 1 system a week, and we had per comfort advisor, and we had 5 comfort advisors. So we were selling 5 systems a week times, what's the math? Let's figure it out real fast. 5 systems a week. That's $40,000 a week. 40,000 a week is 160,000, 160K extra per month.
Okay.
It was significant. And that was I mean, like, Jesus Christ, if I had the ability to wrap this up into one transaction and had the slick pitch that I had now, we could have quadrupled those numbers easily.
Yeah. I mean, even at like, if that average and extrapolated out through the entire year, I mean, that's $2 million onto the, like, at 40,000, right? 52 weeks, $2 million, depending on what your EBITDA is. I mean, if you get an EBITDA of 20% and a multiple of 10 when you sold, I mean, it's over, that's an extra 4 million, right?
The EBITDA on this is 100%. That's the
right. But building into the entirety of the business.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, obviously straight EBITDA on top of that. I mean, at 2 million revenue at 100% EBITDA, you still got some expenses to pay off of that. I mean, not gonna say, hey, here's $20 million for that, right? Extrapolating out over the EBITDA of 20% of the business, right? Because it can cover a lot of expenses or increase your EBITDA if you're one of those individuals that's at maybe 5 to 7%, and you're like, shit, how can I add more onto this without really adding more onto this? Right. Now, this is one of those potential options on that. So
the way I want people to think about this is I don't want people to think super grandiose, like, because that's cool, but then they get pissed off when it doesn't pan out exactly right. I want them to think about, like, in the way that I was doing it, like even worst case scenario, which is the way that we were doing it, where we had this primitive version of it, where we were only getting each one of our comfort advisors to be able to close one deal a week. But that's massive. Right? I mean, do the math. That's massive to the owner, especially, right? Like, let's go back because it's 6,500, right? Because the comfort advisor is keeping 1,500 of it, right? So 6,500 times 4, it's $26,000 to the owner per comfort advisor. Pure take home.
That was a wild sound. So
that was not me. I get to say that.
I think that was Evan. So I actually don't know who it was. I know it wasn't on my end. It came through my headphones. So look, if you guys are interested in exploring this and looking at it, I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's actually no cost for somebody to even get on a training with you. It's all, is that correct?
I do charge. It's a very small amount.
Okay.
It's nothing expensive. Depends on the size of your team. It's under $5,000.
Okay.
Under, right? Yeah. Unless if you got a monster team, then it gets close to the $5,000. Whatever it is, you're going to make up for it in the first deal that you do.
That's why I'm glad I didn't put my foot in my mouth on it, because I was trying to go by our conversation.
I'm the king.
And yeah. I remember you saying that. So, oh yeah, there it is. Does a one-time training fee for a 2-hour training. That's what it is.
Yep,
so
that's it.
my bad on my notes. So if you're looking at, I mean, look, 2 sales, 1 sale pays for itself, right? GetSolarWise.com. You can look at that. GetSolarWise.com/partner. If you want to get in touch with them directly, these will be in the show notes too, by the way, info@GetSolarWise.com. And let's blow them up with 3M drunk texts, 303-597-8687. Send him your best Jewish jokes, because I'm sure he'll probably love that. So
I'll send you my ones back, please.
Yeah.
Wife is gonna fucking kill you guys, but I love it.
Hey, you put your cell phone on there, so
I gotta tell mine really quick. How does a Jewish pedophile attract children?
Fuck. God damn it. How?
Hey kids, you want to buy some candy?
I'm glad that's at the end of this. At least that's at the end of the show. So in case we get canceled for saying, right? In case we get canceled by saying the word pedophile on here. So that's actually a new one. We've talked about fluffers before, but talking about pedophiles is definitely a new one. So,
we can censor that out.
No, let's not censor that out. I think that was hilarious. Mine are all definitely ones that will probably get us canceled. So I'll save those for after, when there's no recording involved.
Mine's pretty PG. Like, why do Jews have such big noses?
Why?
Because air is free.
I knew the answer to that one. It's also one of my favorites as well. So,
Only bit of goodie.
Right. As we wrap things up, Evan, did you have any final thoughts?
Nope.
Perfect. Well, I have none other than one last question.
Yep.
And Peter, what is one question that you wish people would ask you more, but don't? And I'm going to caveat this one. This is the first time ever I've caveated this on the show. You can't use the solar part of what you do as a question.
Okay. Should I use a script when I sell?
So should somebody use the script when they sell?
Fuck yes. Fuck yes. I'm not saying you should be like walking around and reading it, but I'm thinking that, I would attribute a very large percentage of my success to the fact that I have always operated off of scripts, and everybody in my company operates off of scripts. And if you don't, you're leaving so much money on the table because you're always reinventing the wheel. Like I always tell guys, it's like, do you think that professional golfers, do you think that they learned how to become pro golfers by like using their custom clubs that they had custom made for them by like their custom club manufacturer? And then the next day they try out lefty clubs. And then the next day they try out clubs that are like too long for them. And the next day they just mismatch a bunch of grand. Like, fuck no, they could never get anywhere in life doing that. Of course, now the lawn guy starts up right over here. Okay, I'm going to take you guys inside with me. We're going to go for a little walk. It's okay. We're going to go for a little walk.
Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, right. We made it this far. We did good.
Not bad.
So close. It is so close.
Yeah, we did so close. That's so close.
We get a tour of his house. It's like MTV Cribs, but for HVAC business owners that have sold. I think we might be onto something there. We could probably do something like that.
Ping pong table. Oh, I would hear.
But when you look at scripting out things, and like it makes sense. You have an SOP for this, you have a process for that, you have a process for that, and a lot of guys say like, okay, well, I'm just going to wing the whole sales process, and I'm just going to hope for the best. I'm going to throw it out there, and lob it, and it's going to be a prayer. Well, if you actually put in structured detail to the presentation, come up, hey, you know what? Guess what? Every single objection that you come up, I mean, there's obviously the adage of that an objection is just a symptom of a bad presentation, right? But every objection that comes up, guess what? They're always the same. And you can always script out ways to be able to handle those objections. Then what you do from that, you move into role playing, because now you have this out and now you role play through the whole script, and it becomes even that much more dialed in for your sales, or for your selling techs and your sales guys and everybody else that is out there, comfort advisors, everybody. CSRs even should have a script too, right? Everybody that is customer facing should have some form of script.
Do you have any idea how many times I've gone through my script and I've like found one little word? I'm like, oh my God, if we move this word over here, I can like get 2% more sales. If you do that 100 times over the course of 10 years,
yep.
You have any idea how much that adds up?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that without a script. You're winging it every single time. Like we have these brilliant, like we'll sit down, me and my team will sit down and we'll do script reviews constantly. We're always doing script reviews. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that we read our own word script for script. That's actually not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that we're using it as a very strong blueprint. And then when we discover these really cool little edits, well, then of course we're going to like, shit, say it exactly like that, because that makes such a big difference. And then you add that up over the course of years. Come on, guys, this is life-changing. Like if you don't have a script, and I'm not saying you need to read it word for word, but you need to have this blueprint as this architecture for what you're doing. It's like, it's the backbone of everything. That'd be like fucking Martin Scorsese going, hey, we're going to film this awesome new movie, but don't worry, we're just going to fucking improvise. It'd be fucking awful, right? It'd be an awful movie. No one would ever watch it. Like Wolf of Wall Street, pretty fucking awesome. Scripted, right? Like every movie ever scripted. Right. So what are you doing, right?
But you look at in Wolf of Wall Street's a great example, right? Jordan Belfort in the movie, and he did this in real life, and I've gone to see him speak. I've taken his courses as well. Everything that he did was scripted.
Yes.
He would take the schmucks off the street and he would get them to read a script, and then he would train them on how to do it properly, how to add voice inflection, how to add tempo, so that you could communicate effectively. Because when you sound like a robot who's reading a script, nobody buys from that either. You can have all the right lyrics, but without the right music, it fails. When you have that blend of the two together, that's when the magic happens.
Do you guys?
Babies are made.
Do you guys follow Jeremy Miner?
No.
Jeremy Miner, like you guys, if you've never checked out Jeremy Miner, write this down. Jeremy Miner, NEPQ, Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questioning. It's phenomenal. So it sounds way more fancy than it really is. So it's not like it's super scientific, but really all it means is like, hey, I'm going to ask question. First of all, it's question based, right? Because we all know that questions win 100% of the time. So it's question based, but these questions are designed to elicit an emotional response, just like you said, right? Because we buy based off of emotion. So if I can get you emotionally involved in whatever it is that I'm selling you, but more importantly, if I can get you emotionally involved in me as well, who's going to win, right? Me, 10 out of 10 times. Who are they going to buy from? The guy who is literally just, when you walk into your doctor's office and you say my knee hurts, does he immediately just write you a prescription and say, here, go take this and fuck off? No, like he sits and talks. Sometimes, yes.
Depends on the doctor.
Depends on the time. Yeah. If they're in Florida, yeah, 100% of the time. In a strip mall, yes.
Right? Do they have big pharma in their back pocket? Yes.
Yes. Okay. I agree with you guys. But a good doctor, no. It's like you'd be freaked out if he did.
Yep.
Doctor's going to ask you a lot of questions, right? And only then will he be comfortable even prescribing anything to you. Why aren't we doing the same thing? Like, why aren't we consulting like that? Why are we just, coming in hot and be like, you need to buy this? It's like, I haven't even told you what my real problems are yet. So
I think that's a big misconception, though, when it comes to the consultative selling approach. People feel like I can't control the conversation, but I'm a firm believer that the person who asks the questions does control the conversation.
1,000% yes.
Directs everything.
1,000% yes.
Yeah.
Gene Slade is one of my favorite guys when it comes to this. Like, I'm sure you guys have had Gene on, right?
He's a very talented salesperson. He knows his shit and he knows how to lead a conversation.
Gene can absolutely carry on an entire conversation without making a single fucking statement. Not one. It's just question after question after question after question. Right. And he's a master of that. And I love talking to him for that reason alone. So like anyone out there who wants to learn HVAC, selling with consultative questions, definitely talk to Gene. But any PQ, you guys, is just get on YouTube and honestly, like, sorry, Jeremy, for giving away your secret here, but like 95% of all of his paid courses is free on YouTube. Like, it's crazy. Like most course creators these days, like Alex Hormozy is the first one to really talk about this. He's like, if you want to get big in this world, give away more than what other guys are getting paid for.
Gary Vee is the same way too, right? Value. It's why we look at our organization, On Purpose Media, and one of our core values is lead with value first. Because when you provide value first, you can sit down with a room of 100 people. You tell every single person the one thing that they need to do to change their life or build a better business or whatever it is that you're selling. Guess what? 90 to 95 people in the room won't do shit with that. The other 5 to 10 people in the room, they're going to find that answer out anyways. They're going to do it anyway. So you might as well be the person giving them the value to be able to change whatever it is their circumstance is.
It took me so long to wrap my mind. I think everyone, when they're kind of younger and insecure, they have this, real scarcity mindset, right? Where I can't give away the secret sauce or I'll have nothing to sell them. And Alex Hormozy was the one who talks about it. Said, no, you should give away the secret sauce, but you sell the implementation. Right. It's the implementation that's the fucking hard part, because you can give anybody like the script to success and they will not fucking do it. Give it to 10 people, 9 out of them won't even read it. Maybe the 10th might come close, right? But they won't. You sell the implementation. You show them how to actually do it step by step by step. And that's kind of what I'm doing. Like I gave you my whole pitch. It's really not much, whole heck of a lot more to it than that. I just got to show you how to really put all the nuts and bolts together. So it's not harder than what I just did. If it were harder, then it wouldn't really work, to be honest with you.
Right.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for dropping some knowledge bombs. Thank you for showing how an HVAC business can add $32,000 a week to their business per Comfort Advisor. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's something that can easily be implemented, especially as we move towards this greener energy conversation. And hey, if the rebates are there, why not take advantage of them? So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for adding some value, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, 2 quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of this show, no matter how big, no matter how small, All we ask is for you to introduce this to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.